What's going on, YouTube? Today we're gonna do a proper pre-trip inspection. First thing first, come in front of the truck, make sure all the lights working, and then look up under the truck, make sure ain't no leaks, and then from there you go to the hood. This is how you open the hood. You pull first latch, then you come back around. You pull second latch, and then from there you lift the hood from the side. Check, make sure all clamps tight. You make sure none of the lines cracked or has holes in them. Make sure all plugs are plugged up. Get your alternator down here. Make sure all bolts are tight. This your compressor right here. Make sure no hose is leaking. Make sure all clamps tight on that. This right here is your fuel filter. Make sure that's not leaking. I mean oil filter, sorry about that. Then you go to this side. This right here is your fuel filter. Make sure no hose is leaking. This right here is your power steering fluid. So you check the power steering fluid right here. Sometimes you gotta push down on it, then you pick it up. Right. This your coolant. You have a cold minimum and a cold filled up. So that's where it's supposed to be when it's full, when it's before you crank it up in the morning. This your oil dipstick. That's where you check your oil at. This your oil fill where you put your oil at. This is steering shaft. You make sure ain't no play in that. Can't move it this way and that way. This right here is your gearbox. Make sure none of the lines are loose or leaking. This your make sure none of the screws are loose. Here we go back to plugs. Make sure the plugs are tight. This right here is your brake drum. This is your slack adjuster. You make sure there's no slack in the slack adjuster. This right here is your steering shaft. This is the pitman arm. Make sure the bolt is tight and the collar pin is in it, both sides. This is your island. Make sure the collar pin is in it and the bolt is tight. Make sure the boot's not busted. Also, this is shock. Make sure bolt is in it and tight both ways. It's your drums, brake shoes, just like a car. Make sure those are not less than an inch. Alright, then you go to your lugs. Make sure all your lugs are tight. Make sure there's no oil coming out of here. And no oil coming out of here. So seal goes under that, it goes bad. Make sure you have a valve stem on. Make sure you tread on your tire is not less than 3/4 of an inch on the steer. Make sure there's no busted beads on the tire. Then we come over here. This is where you put your def at. Make sure the cap is on. Make sure there's no leak on the ground down there. Then from there, come back to your gas tank. Make sure the cap is tight. Make sure there's no loose brackets or bolts. Okay. Make sure lines are not loose. No leaks around that also. This right here, your drive shaft. Make sure all the bolts are tight on that. And make sure it's not loose. Have no play left to right, forward to back. Okay, these right here are glad hands. Make sure your glad hand seal. They tend to dry rot and pieces chip off. So this is where you get your air pressure from. So you have leaks most of the time come from here. Both sides. Right. This is the other glad hand seals on the back of the truck. Sometimes they get bent in like that. You can pick around it and get it to come back out. I always hook up from the left to right. Right to left. So hook this side up first. Then you come to this side. Always make sure there's locking that tab so your lights won't be flickering going down the road. Then I lock this glass side. Then from there, come back, check the tires, make sure none of the tires are low. Check the inside. This wheel seal normally leaks and it be sitting around the rim. So you make sure it's not leaking. Make sure all the tires tight. All the lug tight and all the studs tight. Make sure all the bolts on the wheel seal tight. All the bolts on the lug nuts tight and not missing. Make sure neither valve stem is damaged or missing. Look on the inside. Make sure the inside wheel not leaking. Make sure all the airbags are fully inflated and not leaking. That's another brake chamber right there. You make sure that's not leaking. Make sure the lines are not cut or frayed. Then this right here, this your fifth wheel. Make sure that cotter pin is always in there. Make sure that handle is all the way in when you hooked. And then back here, this where it hooks at, you got to make sure that clamp goes all the way around the kingpin. Make sure the lights are on in the back of the trailer. I mean back of the bobtail. Then you make sure you have both mud flaps and make sure they're not more than an inch off the ground. I mean less than an inch off the ground. Make sure both shocks are tight and not busted or sagging. Make sure all the bolts are tight on the landing gear. This is called the landing gear. Right here is the where you keep your trailer registration. They be on the front of dry vans. You always check this, make sure you got registration for your load, cause DOT gonna check it if they pull you over. And if it's not in there, you're gonna get a citation. Make sure all these bolts tight. You don't have this on the dry van, but it's different for us. Make sure your trailer inspect manufacturer's date. This like if you have a flat or something, this is where you find your information that you need for your trailer and stuff. Then check your signal light. Make sure your signal light work on the trailer. Then you come back here, check the back tire. Make sure your trailer tires are all up. Make sure there's no leak from the wheel seal also. Make sure all the bolts tight on the studs. This right here is your tandems. Make sure this pin is always in. It's the pin right here. I got it out right now because the wheels are all the way to the back. So I'm going to slide them all the way to the front. Because you always ride with your wheels to the front and no, not farther than the back. So right now, my lights are off. So sometimes when your light is off, you gotta wiggle the green line and it'll get it to pop on. But other than that, it's the same thing for the left, for your right, and that's a pre-trip inspection. Thanks.